so we have three, but,
And you'll have Rodney on the phone.
okay. I've got four on my, let me turn my phone off. That might be a good plan. Bless you. Are you guys ready for 4 o'clock? Oh, yes. Okay, and do we have Commissioner Friend on the phone?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Marina Island going to be added to the agenda?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this May 8th Lynn Haven regularly scheduled commission meeting. At this time, I'd like to call this meeting to order. First order of business would be number 2, the invocation, and I have not asked him before the meeting, but I'm so pleased to see Leon Miller here with us today, feeling better. I'm wondering if you might feel like leading us in an invocation. Thank you so much. I believe you have Reverend Woods with you back there too, it looks like. Nope, not Reverend. I'm trying to think who's back there looking. I can't see that far, I apologize.
May we pray. Our Father God, we come again to say thanks to you, O Heavenly Father. As you wakened us this morning and started us on our way, O Heavenly Father, as we go through the day, O Heavenly Father, we want to thank you as you guide us for the city of Lynn Haven, O Heavenly Father. O Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for all the things that is going on in this country, O Heavenly Father. We know that you have the power in your hand to help correct it, O Heavenly Father, and we're depending on you. O Heavenly Father, we ask you that this meeting today be fruitful for the city of Lynn Haven. In thy name, for Christ's sake, ever. Amen.
Amen. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you. Before I move on to item number 3, I would need a motion from the commission, first of all, to permit Commissioner Friend to participate by telephone this afternoon.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any objection from either of the board members? Obviously not, since you made the motion. Any objection from the public? Okay, could you please call the roll, Mr. White?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Friend, Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so, and then the second item, Commissioner Barnes has notified the city manager that he is staying over at work because of the FSA testing. Is there a motion for him to be excused for the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objection from anyone on the board? Any objection from the public? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. So both commissioners are approved and excused in that order. My mayor's report consists of several items, probably not as many as normally that I would have. I just want to say I feel, and I hope you feel the same way too, that we are truly blessed to live in the day that we live in of medical science. I had a cataract surgery last Monday and have spent a good part of the week recovering, and went back for a checkup today. And I just want to tell you that this eye, which was 20/200, which I understand is legally blind, is now 20/20 as of today. So that's the day that we live in. And I remember having a great grandmother who lost her sight completely And so that's really, and so I'm doing another one next week and should be able to see you all clearly by the next meeting. Very thankful for that. I met out at Gulf Coast State College on May the 3rd with all the other, met with Mayor Brudnicki, Mayor Thomas, and Mayor Sasser from Chipley, and we participated in a forum in front of the Bay County Realtors Association, which was a wonderful opportunity for me to talk about Lynn Haven and business development and what we're trying to do with some of our property on the Old Platte and Florida Avenue. So it was a great time to get to talk about all the things that we're doing in Lynn Haven, and we were very well received by that group. I've also spoken with many residents by phone and email on a variety of issues, a lot of them concerning the ditches and the work that's being done over on the west side of Highway 77. If you haven't visited over there, it looks like our whole town is under siege. There are pipes and equipment everywhere, but we know that it's moving in the right direction, so we're very excited about that. I had a meeting with the Community Service Department regarding upcoming events. It was very interesting and very informative. And then I met with also a city manager and had some questions with him. I also attended the Bay County TPO meeting, and we talked some more about the four-laning of Highway 77. There's some more meetings coming. And some of the things that were very surprising to me in the meeting is that it looks like that there's going to be probably a lot of delay before that happens on the east side of 77, the four-laning of 390. $35 million in money that it will take to purchase easements in that area. FDOT is saying they don't have and could be, they used the year 2040 for some of that. So some interesting. We want to stay on top of that and see where that's going. A lot of information and a lot of non-information. Actually, we just voted to sort of go forward. City manager has also let me know I was down today looking at the splash pad in Kensall Park that's coming along nicely. They're framing that up for concrete and putting the spouts, the water spigots and all in the ground. And the equipment, the pretty part that the children will love, is supposed to be here in 2 more weeks, according to city manager. So that's moving along really great. I've also done some research over the last couple of weeks talking to people about the placement of the second splash pad out of this year's budget. You know, we had originally talked about, part of the commission wanted to see it out of the sports complex on 390, and then others were looking at some different opportunities, and I had looked at Kane Griffin Park and thought that might be a good place, with several reasons for that, which I have already expressed, but since I feel strongly about it, and this is my mayor's report, I'll say what I've said to other people. I just think we have a lot of children in the old part of Lynn Haven who do not have 2 parents, or who have a parent who are willing and able, or who aren't working and not able to transport them all the way out to Highway 390 to the sports complex. This would be another walkable park in the old part of Lynn Haven, available to our children who have no place to swim other than the ditches when they fill up, or down at the bay. And the bay is just as bad for small children without supervision as any place I can imagine. So I just think that this will be a great thing to happen in Lynn Haven. I just want to push that forward again. And then finally, with no hope, no offense taken by anyone here, especially city attorney, I've been looking through a lot of Lynn Haven's expenditures as we're approaching mid-year budget, and looking at places where we could take a second look. You've heard me say this before, so it's nothing new, but I just want to bring it up again. Don't want to make a motion, don't want to put it on the agenda today. I just want the rest of the commissioners, since I can't talk to you anywhere else, to hear what I have to say and consider it and be thinking about it. I ask for records this week on our expenses for auditing services as well as for legal services. I kind of expected it, but what I asked for was invoices for the last 5 years on each. I asked for a total, and then I asked to see invoices. First of all, Carr, Riggs, and Ingram have been the auditors for the city for, I believe, over 20 years. I may be wrong on that, but I believe it's over 20. And I have brought up several times that I thought it might be nice to have a fresh set of eyes on accounting. I especially wanted that when I came in as mayor with a new administration. I wanted to start with fresh books. That, of course, didn't happen. But over the past 5 years, the city has paid Carr, Riggs, and Ingram $242,904 for 5 audits for the city. That may be a reasonable amount. It may be the amount that's charged everywhere, but I would certainly like for us to think of the possibility of putting out an RFQ and seeing if there are other lower-priced options out there to be more cost-effective. And then secondly, when pulling our legal services, Harrison Sale McCloy is sort of a government law firm here. They serve the school board. They've served us all well. They serve all of the cities just about. I think there's a couple of exceptions. But our receipts to Harrison Sale McCloy over the last, our invoices to Harrison Sale McCloy, $821,414 over 5 years, which averages somewhere around $170,000 a year. And when you put those two figures together, the city is paying out $1,064,318.39. That's a lot of money to 2 consultants in 5 years. So my thinking is, and I did a little more research, the town of Davies, Florida, for example, has 2 in-house attorneys and a legal assistant, which they keep in the city office there every day, all day long, to consult with whoever needs to consult with. And there's no billing because there's a straight salary. So if you average it out, and we're paying about $170,000 a year, and the average salary for an attorney in the state of Florida, this is based on big cities and little cities, is $80,000. That's not entry level. That's just looking on several different sites. I think there's some places we can look. I mean, no offense to anyone here, just saying what I've been saying since I campaigned for mayor almost 3.5 years ago. So anyway, that's the end of my lengthy mayor's report. I hope you take that into consideration, because I am going to be asking for this to be placed on an agenda and a workshop at some time in the very near future. So that's where I am. I'll give the floor to Commissioner Tender for the commissioner's report.
All righty. I have a few items. A couple of weeks ago, I was approached by Mr. Clubbs. He is a friend of Bill, I think it's Urick, that was here talking to us about the private runway that he wanted to. Anyway, Mr. Clubbs and I talked for probably an hour about this, and what he would like to see, and I guess I'm saying that I would too, or I would at least like for the commission to explore the possibility, is the runway would go over there behind Deer Point School with plenty of room to accommodate a 5,000-foot runway. And that's what we had at the old airport. And he's suggesting use it as a private runway and build a industrial center along one end of it, which of course would be very good for the city of Lynn Haven. And the flight pattern would bring them over the swampy area there by the bay that can't ever be used for anything else. Anyway, he kind of got me intrigued, and I told him that I remember when Mr. Urick was here talking, and we said that at some point we would entertain a workshop just to discuss it. But I think it could bring a lot of things to Lynn Haven. And they have a little trouble out there with private airplanes at our current airport. And like he said, it brings people to and from this area, which can't help but to boost our economy and help the city out too, I think. But anyway, that's something I'd like to entertain in the future, having a workshop on that. The other thing is, I was also approached by one of the people from General Dynamics. And I have to say, I worked there years ago when it was Sally Mae, and did not realize this, but after she told me, General Dynamics is the largest employer in Lynn Haven. They have, I think she told me they're at 1,000 right now, and in June they're going to be hiring an enormous amount of people because they have just been awarded the Medicare contract. So they're going to be there for a long time coming. And she wanted to ask if the commission would entertain, kind of partnering with them. She would like to have us help as far as their employment drives and things of that nature. I think that it's a feather in Lynn Haven's cap, and I think it's something that we should used to our advantage as well. This came up today. I got a phone call. I've already talked to the city manager about it, of a resident on Colorado Avenue that we met with last September. And this is basically, without getting into all the details of her concerns, bottom line, she's spending $3,000 on landscaping, and it was scheduled to start this Friday. Well, today she went outside, and there's a big white truck out there, and they're telling her, okay, well, you're next. We're going to come and we're going to be lining your pipes, as the city manager said, lining your pipes and such. I would like to see us try to find a way to notify our residents when we're going to be doing this. I mean, this is progress, and like the mayor said a couple of weeks ago, it is inconvenient. I do a great little pattern just to get to my house now because it moves every block. You go to turn down the street, you go, they're there. And in progress, I mean, it's going to be inconvenient, but if there was any way we could notify the residents, we're going to be in your neighborhood next week, digging up your road, or put it on a door hanger, or anything like that. Like she had this scheduled, and now everything's going to come to a screeching halt. And as she says, all because I wasn't communicated with. So I'd like to see us do something about that if that's at all possible. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, this is my last item, is I will be out for the next meeting. I'm going on my vacation. I'm already left in my mind, but so I will be missing the next meeting. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Russell?
Thank you, Mayor. I've only got a couple of things. I was asked to attend a coaches meeting at the rec center last week where the rec coordinator, David Horton, and his new assistant, Taylor Holmes, met with the coaches and tried to hash out some issues. And I know we've had some growing pains out there, and I think that the coaches now realize that we're moving in the right direction, and I appreciated being asked to be there. And I think the reason I was asked to be there is because I've been involved with Lynn Haven Rec for I'm going on 10 years now with my son. So, I've been involved with it enough to know how things have worked out there in the past. But I think the meeting went well. I mean, obviously, when things change and there's growth, not everybody's going to be happy. But I think in the end, what we're doing at the Lynn Haven Rec is going to be an improvement, and I think it's the right way and the right movement. I also I brought up at the last commission meeting that we had a citizen complain about some speeding in an alleyway that runs between 26th and Publix, and I have since understood that that is actually technically a private road, and if you'll look at the agenda tonight, there's some housekeeping items on it. I think that it's going to fix that problem. I think the city manager is working on that to where he can be able to put speed limit signs on that road and try to control that traffic. So I appreciate that getting taken care of, and I will let the citizen that complained know what's going on. And also, item 10, if you'll see, we've been working on the multimodal mobility plan fee study. Well, that is made me go back and look at impact fees that we charge, and I think y'all have all heard before that I don't really particularly like impact fees. I don't like stagnating growth, and I've had a couple of meetings today. I had a meeting today with Amanda Richard and also with the city manager, and they have good arguments, and they've swayed my opinion to some extent. But just to let you know, the average cost of a new permit in the city of Lynn Haven right now is $8,300. If you were to go down and pull a permit to build a new house in the city of Lynn Haven, you're looking at $8,300 for an 1,800 square foot house. Out of that $8,300, 82% of that is impact fees or mobility fees or transportation fees, or however you want to call it. It's impact fees that we're charging, and it's a hard argument because we are growing. Lynn Haven permits we've increased the number of permits pulled this year over last year, so you could argue that it's not stagnating growth, and it's not. per se, but who's to know how many permits would have been pulled if we weren't charging these impact fees? So, I mean, there's arguments either way. We are higher than Panama City Beach, or the county in impact fees and permit fees. So I do think that's something that we need to consider when we're looking at item 10 on the mobility fee schedule. And I think that, you know, that we may need to look at these numbers in the future. But you know, that's, again, my opinion. So, and that's all I got, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 5, which is the city manager's report.
So what about Rodney?
Commissioner Friend, I'm sorry, you're out of sight, out of mind. I apologize. Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. First of all, I'd just like to thank you, Mayor, and the commissioners for accommodating me. I really appreciate it. I'd also like to say that I found that I don't have the best cell service, so if we do drop the call, please don't waste the time to reconnect. It'll be fine. On to the report. I did attend the TPO meeting. I also attended the TPO subcommittee meeting to select an architect to do some work out at the trolley transit yard. The subcommittee also appointed me to negotiate with the selected architect to do the work, so I'm looking forward to that. Also had some fun stuff. Went out and attended planting of some trees out at Kensall Park. I just wanted to make sure to thank the employees for all their hard work and keeping the commitment to keep Lynn Haven a tree city, USA city. I also attended the Arbor Day celebration at Lynn Haven Elementary, and always enjoy that. And also, I do plan on getting up with Mr. Miller. He and I spoke. I'm going to meet him out at Ken Griffin Park and talk more about the splash pad out there at that park. So I'll be back in town and hope to do that next week. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Thank you so much. Okay, now moving on to item number 5, the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I'd ask Greg and Mr. Derek Russo to come up front. I reported to y'all last week about the quality of water in the city of Lynn Haven, and as we continue to win awards. So this gentleman right here that's with Greg is the primary responsible for the city of Lynn Haven having such good water. So before that, if y'all give him a round of applause, it takes a lot to run these plants. But Derek has been selected as the Employee of the Month.
Thank you. Derek is a 10-year employee with the city. He began on the pipeline crew, starting out digging ditches, fixing water and sewer leaks. He's got his distribution license. He transferred over to the water operations side several years ago and has obtained the A level, which is the highest you can get, FDEP certification for water plant operations. He was instrumental in completing the consumer confidence report that everybody had, and also in our winning the Region 7 Best Tasting Drinking Water Award. I want to thank Derek for all of his hard work and look forward to a lot more to come.
Thank you, gentlemen. Bring you up to date on a few more items we've been working on for the commission and the citizens. The dog park over at Kensall. I hope that the fence will be installed by Friday, including some concrete, and then we'll be moving a little bit further along with that. Also, Deputy Chief Ramey has been helping me work with the Bay County with the prisoners, so you may see some prisoners out there a little bit cleaning the shoreline off. We continued working with them, and all the equipment's been ordered that y'all approved last meeting for a trailer and equipment for that, have them to work throughout the city every other weekend. So we'll have that labor force to help. I would also like to, I know several people probably here tonight for the development agreement for Marina Island. They have pulled that from the agenda. If they go back through it, they would have to go back through 2 more readings. So right now there's the development agreement is done right now. I will begin with the commission about Lynn Haven Bayou Park Reserve. That's our 98-acre park along near Deer Point and Deer Point Elementary School. We will be doing a groundbreaking hopefully by the end of this month. So I'll be needing your schedules where we can possibly get some dates. You'll be out there for that. Staff and I met with the Garden Club. We're working with the attorney. Hopefully try to have that building turned over to the city by sometime in June, 1st of June, hopefully. I've been also working with several commercial facilities, hopefully bringing some more jobs and also some more businesses to the city this week and last week. And just remind everyone, Friday night we have the Shepherds here. That's a gospel group that'll be singing in Sheffield Park. And Saturday we have the block party. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you so much. A lot going on this weekend, and I just would like to also commend the city manager and all the city staff that has worked so hard on the concerts in the park because they're being wonderfully successful. People are attending. It's a lovely way to spend a Friday evening, and the weather's been really, really good. And I also would like to thank the city manager for jumping on the community service and inmate work schedule. We talked about that a while back, and with hurricane season approaching, keeping the ditches clean and all is so important for drainage, and our city employees work so hard at that, but it's just a huge task for the numbers we have. So thank you so much for being on top of that. Moving on to item number 6, our city attorney's report.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Item number 7 is public commentary. If there's any item, either if it's on the agenda or not on the agenda, you're welcome to come forward at this time. Go ahead.
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. For the past couple of months, a builder has been constructing 2 homes directly across the street from me. And this past Thursday morning, approximately 6:15 in the morning, I heard banging. And it didn't stop after 5 minutes. Banging. Didn't stop. It continued. I went over and approached one of the 2 gentlemen that was doing some of the banging, and I said to him, "Is it not too early to be doing this?" And he did not understand me. Either he didn't speak English or I wasn't clear in what I was expressing. So he directed me to the second person that was helping him. And the other person shook his head no, that everything was fine. So I went back in the house, waited until the city hall opened, called up the building department, and I spoke to Gloria Thompson, asked her if there was a specific code for people building in residential areas, and she said there certainly was. There should be no noise before 7 a.m. and no noise after 7 p.m. So I went home. I thanked her for that. She said if I had a problem, I could go to the code enforcement officer and make a complaint. I didn't feel that was necessary. I went home, waited until the builder came on site, went over to him and expressed my concern about the earliness of the construction noise taking place. And he looked at me and said, "Well, is there a problem?" And I said, "No, I'm an early riser. That's not the problem, but the code says nothing before 7, nothing after 7. He said, "Well, he was behind schedule." He said, "I am behind schedule." Therefore, he felt it necessary to break the code, I guess. He assumed that it was okay. He told me that he had spoken to the police, and it was okay for him to be doing this noise before 7 a.m. I came to the police station to check to see if this particular person had called the police. They can tell a call roll. He had not called since January. He had never called. So my question is it okay for a builder to go to a police person, either their cell phone or their private home, or even calling the city at a police station and asking, is it okay for me as the builder, because I'm behind schedule, to omit this rule and not adhere to it? That's my question.
Well, I would say absolutely not. City manager can talk to code enforcement and see if they can go out and?
will.
I think that would be the steps. Our attorney, do you have any advice other than that? Okay. So hopefully that'll be taken care of for you. Is anyone else? Yes, Ms. Tennell?
Have something I'd like to say. Y'all have brought up the splash pond, and when we were having all those little tents across the way, when all the petitions were, people were out there trying to get votes, I met this real nice second grade teacher from Highland Park, and he says, you know, so many children over where I teach have never been to the beach, and so I went to my circle at church, and now we go over to the school every holiday and have a little party for them. But I think that's the same way with the splash pond. I think it should be where children that are underprivileged, I guess I would call it, would have a place to go. And I hope y'all think about Kane Griffin Park, because I think that would be a wonderful place for it. So I hope y'all agree with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tennell. Mr. Miller?
Leon Miller, 1508 Mississippi Avenue. Ms. Cornell, I want to thank you for talking about Kane Griffin Park. School going to be out pretty soon. And then Kane Griffin Park area, there's going to be over 12 or 1,300 kids in that area. Nothing to do during the summer. It's going to be very difficult for these kids to pass over Highway 77 or get out to the park on 390. And I really do hope you consider putting the splash park over that Kane Griffin Park, because all of those townhouses is coming in there now. That's going to be a lot of more kids coming into that. That side of the town needs something for kids instead of trouble. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Anyone else? Okay, I don't see any other hands, so that'll conclude our public commentary section of the meeting today. Moving on to item number 8, which is our consent agenda. The only item on this today is the approval of the minutes from April the 24th. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion or corrections? Any discussion from the public? There appears to be none. There's been a motion and a second. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, so the minutes stand approved. Under old business, none other than second reading of ordinance 1054, amending ordinance 1040 to include the background checks for the animal control shelter volunteers. Mr. White, are you ready with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 1054, an ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending Chapter 42 of the Lynn Haven Code of Ordinances regarding parks and recreation, amending an existing background screening requirement for all volunteers providing services at city parks to include volunteers at the animal shelter, repealing all ordinances in conflict and providing for an immediate effective date.
Thank you. Are we making a motion to approve this after second reading, or is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is there a motion for approval of this?
I make a motion, we approve it.
Thank you.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Commissioner Friend, any discussion? Guess not. Any discussion from the public? Hey, Mr. White, would you please? I'm sorry. Yes, Ms. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't see you. Apologize. You okay?
What were we just talking about?
The animal shelter
Yeah, okay.
background checks?
Oh, I know.
Okay.
What I was wondering, this is Arlene Harrison. The background checks for animal shelter volunteers and any volunteer in any of the parks?
Basically, I think we already have those in place for all the others.
Oh,
This
for
one
all
was
the
one that was
others.
missing,
I
and
was
so
just, wondering who's paying for all that. We are.
the background checks?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's
Yes.
right. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I just want to add my comment to that. I know there's some money involved with that. It's not a large amount, and I don't think we can pay too much to protect our children, to make sure who's working with them is who we need working with them. That's just, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Any other discussion? Okay, Mr. White?
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, so the new ordinance, or the amended ordinance rather, stands approved for the Animal Control Shelter volunteers. Okay, moving on to new business. Item number 10 is approval to implement a multimodal mobility plan fee schedule. And if I could get, if there is a second, if there's a motion and a second, and then we can open for discussion. Or maybe we need to have discussion before we have a motion, I'm not sure.
How about we have a motion to have a discussion?
Okay, we don't need a motion for that. So we don't have a motion to implement, and so I'm assuming that we're either against it or we're wanting some discussion. So would anyone like to be recognized?
Yes, ma'am. Again, like I stated in my opening remarks, I'm not a particular fan of impact fees or any kind of fees when it stifles growth. While I understand that, and I agree with the arguments that have been given, that new people need to be able to pay for the increased infrastructure, and I agree to that to some extent. But there are some of these numbers in here that I have a hard time with. If you look at the fee schedule, the current impact fees that it says we did charge on this list there's been a moratorium on them, so we have not been charging them. And I don't know how long we haven't been charging them, but we have not been charging a fee. So to say that we're only going from this number to the new number is a misnomer in my opinion. We're going from $0 to this new number. And some of the ones that don't sit well with me are restaurants. A $5,000 restaurant is looking at paying a $20,000 impact fee, or no, excuse me, $20,000 mobility fee, because we don't call it impact because it's a different item. I think that's an excessive fee when you look at the other impact fees that they're already going to have to pay. A drive-through restaurant, $6,500 per 1,000 square feet. So if you're looking at I don't know the average size of a drive-through restaurant, but assuming it's 10,000 square foot, that's $65,000 in mobility fees. These numbers scare me. I think that if somebody's coming in here to look to build, say, a Chick-fil-A, and they go, oh crap, I've got to pay, excuse me, I didn't mean to say that.
Forgiven, go ahead. I
I've
think we've all heard worse than that
got to
one.
pay $65,000 in mobility fees for Lynn Haven, but I'll go across the bridge to Southport and I'm not going to pay that. I don't want that to happen. I don't want us to lose the potential growth because of the fees. Now I understand, and again, I agree with Amanda's arguments and the city manager's argument that there would need to be some kind of fee in place, but I think some of these need to be adjusted.
Thank you. Commissioner Friend, did you want to weigh in on this at all?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I can certainly respect Commissioner Russell's position. I would just like for us to make sure that we maybe entertain it in the future. I think the mobility fee structure is good for Lynn Haven. We want to increase the mobility opportunities for Lynn Haven. So I think at some point we can relook at the numbers and come back to the table and readdress it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Tender?
Yes, Mayor. I agree completely with Commissioner Russell. I looked at the numbers too, and even when I tried to scale them back to what made common sense to me, it still concerns me that these are big numbers. They're huge numbers. I just hate to always see anything go up. I hate to see impact fees, taxes, or anything like that. And coming to Lynn Haven, people say now that it's burdensome. That's being very pleasant about it. It's burdensome to build in Lynn Haven. And yes, if I had to vote today, it wouldn't be in favor of it.
Okay. and if you don't mind, I'd like to weigh in as well. One of the things that I'm not saying what I would do at this point, but one of the things that I do like about the mobility fees is that we are shifting back the burden to business. It's been on residential, and if you look back over the last 15 to 20 years in Lynn Haven, there have been a lot of large businesses come in, and I'm just going to say Walmart, and I'm going to say a few others, and I'm not sure that they've paid their fair share. And there's a lot of information not available to find about what they paid and what they didn't pay over these years that they've been frozen for businesses, but not frozen for residents. So residents have paid the price, and I think the mobility plan is not so much targeted at small business as it is the large chains that come in. Believe me, McDonald's can afford to pay it. Believe me, Chick-fil-A can afford to pay it. Those small businesses that are in the old plat or in the historic CRA division that would come in new, if you look at the fees they would be charged, they're very minimal. And that's rewarding mom and pop small business type facilities that would open, but at the same time making sure, I mean, I don't know how the general public feels about how Highway 77 looks right now, but I don't like it. I don't like what happened over the last 20 years out there, that we became a thoroughfare for the rest of Bay County for tourists coming in. So I'm very open to this. I'm listening to what the rest of the commission has said, and I haven't heard from Commissioner Barnes, of course, but I don't believe that this needs to be taken off the table. I don't think it has to be a quick decision, and we're certainly not locked into the fees that are listed there. You know, we can do something different. But I definitely agree with the way it's set up, that the burden falls upon these large square footage, chain, franchise type operations that come in that put the biggest burden on our community as people travel through here and do the drive-through and then go right on and don't spend a dime with our small community businesses located in the old part of Lynn Haven. So that's my thoughts on it. And since we're unable to get a motion, as far as moving forward with it today, I would just like to ask the commission if anyone would be in favor of making a motion that we table it for a future meeting after more discussion with the community and more input from our residents, and maybe even, I think a grand idea would be to have maybe a public hearing at the last meeting of the month when people can come out, with one question that I would like to ask of our city planner. Am I under the understanding that our deadline on this is the end of this summer? Was that my understanding, or did I misunderstand about going forward, or is there a deadline?
There isn't a deadline as far as when you adopt the fees. The deadline was when it came to deciding whether you were going to have a plan, and you decided that you wanted to have the plan. So it's now in the comprehensive plan, and in the comprehensive plan it says that you will establish and adopt fees, but it does not say when you will do that.
Or how much they have to be.
Right, you can choose, because they're not impact fees. You can adjust these, you can decide what you want them to be, and then you can adjust them annually, or just like with the other fee schedule, the other kind of fees that we charge for, you know, parks and recs or whatever.
Thank you.
You can adjust those, which is why I had recommended the workshop, because I think that around the table, and especially maybe now that you've got a bit more information, a sit down, round the table, kind of long session where you really discuss it, and then maybe have a public hearing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That helps a lot.
Right.
And if I could add one more thing, then I'll recognize you, Commissioner Russell. Moving back to what you said in the beginning, because I totally agree with you, our permitting fees, I think, are the sticking point or the real issue in Lynn Haven. I really believe that from, just my dad was a contractor, and I mean, I can trace it back, and I think that we need a permitting and just our look at our entire building, our permitting, our inspection, what's allowed, what's not, and really look at that, in a separate workshop. So we've got some, like you said, it's expensive to come to Lynn Haven. We want people to come here, and we want them to come here in an orderly way. We want them to, come and pay fair share. But at the same time, I know people, and you were talking about an 1,800 square foot house. If there are people who are trying to build on waterfront, some of your really nice estate properties, they're paying $40,000 and $50,000 in impact fees on top, you know, to do that. So I think we really need to look at that too. So if I could have maybe a motion to direct the city manager after you make your comments.
Mayor, I guess I do qualify. I'm not against the mobility fee, and I'm willing to make a motion to pass this fee because I do know, from what I've been told, is that we can adjust these numbers. And all I'm asking for this commission is to have a workshop, sit down, and let's hash out these numbers and get them right. I think the mobility fee needs to be put in place. And like I said, I'm willing to make that motion if there would be a second. I just want some good faith understanding that we need to sit down and work these numbers.
I think we're all in agreement with you that we need to have, you know, that we don't need to go forward until we have some more discussion on numbers. And just from the shaking of heads in the audience, I'm saying that, you know, everyone would like to hear more before we, you know, slap a number on a business. But at the same time, like I said, I just don't think these large franchise businesses need to be able to keep coming in here and operating with no impact fees at all.
Yeah, I would like to say that I would like to ask, and we've already had a discussion about having 2 other workshops, but I do think we need to have a workshop about impact fees and cost of building, because we are the highest in the county from the numbers I'm seeing. But saying that, and I know we can adjust these numbers, I don't know if you would like me to make the motion to pass this, I will.
Well, we've already put it as part of our comprehensive plan, so we have it in place. I mean, we have a mobility plan in place. All that's left to do is to decide the numbers. So my thinking is that we not, you know, since we all seem hesitant that, you know, we don't want to decide numbers today and then go back and, what anybody else have a different opinion? Commissioner Friend, anything?
Yes, ma'am. I think I would concur with tabling it and scheduling a workshop.
Okay, so I think we're all in agreement with that. So we just need a motion to table it and schedule. City Manager, would you like to weigh in? I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. And workshop is fine. I know Commissioner Tender had sent me some ideas, what she was thinking. If I could ask the rest of you to send numbers that you think that may be accommodating, where I can, where you give me a starting point for the workshop, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
And-
Go
oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, please go
I'd
ahead.
like to say this too, because now that I've heard just the little bit of communication we've had here, I tend to agree with, I'd like to change my numbers based on what both of these folks have said too. So forget my numbers I sent you.
I'll wait for the next one.
Commissioner Barnes, I didn't see you come in. I apologize. Would you like to weigh in on
No,
this? Did you
that's
hear it?
fine. I have no problems with doing a workshop. Of course, you know, we want to make it affordable at the same time. We don't want to make it where it's going to hamper people from coming into Lynn Haven, because Lynn Haven has experienced growth for quite some time. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to having a workshop, and I'm actually not opposed to even passing this right now. But if it's the pleasure of the commission to go ahead and have a workshop, then I'll support that.
Mayor, if I
Yes,
may.
please go ahead.
I would just suggest that if you all are going to consider adjusting the fees, that you do it on a percentage basis from what was proposed by the consultant, simply because he had a basis that he documented to us on what those fees are. Certainly, you don't have to charge that. You could do a percentage, 80%, 50%, 30%, 10%. But to keep that basis in place, I would recommend that you just do it off of the fees that were suggested, rather than just kind of picking numbers that you think would work. If you do want to just pick numbers, the commission certainly can do that, but I would recommend we re-engage the consultant to come up and verify those numbers are accurate.
And if I could clarify, what I think you're saying is if we were to reduce the 1,000 by 50%, you're suggesting that we would do them all, and I don't think that's what I heard before.
I checked with the consultant, Rob, and he said that the commission can set the fees at whatever they want to set them at, because they weren't worked out by looking at a specific project will cost this much, and so therefore that's why this percentage is charged or this percentage is charged. He said that he came up with those just by looking at what other places were charging, and the fact that we're so small, the rational nexus test, as the state were okay with, doesn't really apply as strictly, because I think the average distance was like 6 miles, and because we're so small, it's like anything that is done in the city is going to benefit anybody else in the city. And I don't know if you received, if Vicky sent you out that sheet, but are you suggesting, I mean, the 3-tier thing is in the comp plan, so that language is in the comp plan, so there still has to be the outside regular area and then like the urban core and the CRA. Is that what you mean? Keeping to those?
I'll go ahead and say this. I've had some disagreements with this consultant about the fees. And the reason is because there's a lot of case law in Florida about impact fees. They have been challenged over and over again. And that's one of the reasons why cities hire consultants that have had basically those fees been challenged in court and supported by documentation. When I talked to this consultant about, and I don't think he's here, but we discussed what kind of background he had to support these fees in case we get challenged on it. And really, this is something new that Florida hasn't dealt with before, and there really is no case law on it. And so my concern from a legal standpoint was that we would just need some kind of basis to base these fees on rather than something that's arbitrary and capricious. So the commission, he has done a study, not a formal study like we see with the impact fees, scientific, but he's done basically a review of other cities that have charged similar fees, market-based type fees. What Amanda's talking about is that there aren't specific improvements, and because we are a small metropolitan area, therefore you don't have to tie the improvements to the expenditures like you do on a traditional impact fee test, and I mean that is what it is. And but my recommendation would still be that whatever numbers we come up with, that there's some basis, legal basis that we can support for it. If we get challenged on it, and we can, go in front of a judge and basically say, this is why we did what we did, not, we like restaurants more than we like whatever it is. It just can't be arbitrary and capricious. And the commission has a wide latitude on this. I would agree with the consultant and what Amanda's saying, but I do think there needs to be some basis for it that we can explain in case we ever get challenged on it.
Because these fees, Rob, aren't just going to be used for transportation improvements. These fees can be used for making improvements at intersections for people with disabilities. They can be used for rails to trails. So there's no way that you can measure it other than the rational nexus test. And I asked him, is this legal? I asked him that on Friday, and he responded with the information that I shared with you. So I'm not sure, and the state were fine with it, and they're recommending that we do this. So if we're going to have to pay consultancy fees if we get him to do any more.
Well, but I think, and I'm not trying to put words in Rob's mouth, but I think what Rob is telling us is that as we go about setting these fees, we need to be careful that we have some background, some support in getting these fees set and not just pull numbers out of the air. And that's what gets us in trouble. We start thinking, well, probably should be this amount or that amount, whatever the case may be. But I think we need to have some kind of substantial evidence to support why we are setting those fees at a certain amount, just in case if we had to go to litigation. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. I'm not saying the city has to hire another consultant by any sense of the imagination. I'm just saying that he has come up with numbers that he has supported in a document that's been presented to the commission and the reasons for those changes. And so the simplest and easiest way to adjust those fees would be on a percentage basis of what he has presented. And that way we can explain it to the judge if we ever get challenged. Simply, Your Honor, this fee was based on this consultant report, and the city decided we didn't want to charge the full fee, so we charged the 50%, we're charging 30%. Where cities can get in trouble in new areas of law like this is when they just start, like you said, don't have a basis for the reason that they're making. And we can discuss all this in the workshop. I just wanted to put it out there since y'all are talking about it.
And I would add one more thing with respect to both of the comments made by the city attorney and also Commissioner Barnes. If you look at item 2 of the mobility plan study, the schedule is suggested. And one thing that I did find out in my research is mobility plans are extremely new. They're very cutting edge.
they
It's
are.
a new way of looking at instead of, and if you go back in Florida history, there's not been really a rhyme nor reason on how impact fees have been paid or not paid. And I can go back and even look at history in this city of some businesses that have paid and some businesses that have not paid, some contractors that have paid to do sewage or whatever, and some who did septic and did not, and the same. There's all kinds of things that have happened over the years. So to say that someone could come forward with, anybody can sue you for anything. They can't necessarily win, they can sue you. But these numbers were not pulled out of the air. They were derived from previous impact fees imposed by our city and averages from similar sized municipalities throughout Florida. So I don't think we need to think that our consultant who we hired and came in and did this just pulled numbers out of the air. I do not believe that based on what he said but I do agree that we need to have this workshop and we need to go forward by lots of discussion, lots of public input, and lots of opinions before we decide. So I need a motion.
I move to table this until we have a workshop.
A second.
So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any from the public? Yes, sir.
My name is Brad Yunt, 210 Lakeview Terrace. At the end of the day, every bill gets paid. If we're going to have mobility fees, we're going to have mobility services, and if the people that are building new homes or new businesses don't pay their fair share, we're going to either have the taxpayer reaching in his pocket to pay the cost that the builder avoided, or we're going to have a deterioration in city services. It's one or the other. You want the builder to have a good deal and be subsidized by not paying his fair share of these fees, then the taxpayer reaches into his pocket to pay the money for the builder, or you have the deterioration in city services. There's no two ways about it. The bill has to get paid.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes. Aye. Mayor Anderson.
Yes, and so we have approved to schedule a future workshop to discuss the numbers in our mobility fee schedule. Pardon me? Okay, Commissioner Friend is no longer participating. His phone has gone away, or the signal, so we'll continue with the four of us. Item number 11 is the approval for Phoenix Construction Task Order for slip lining stormwater pipes. Do we have a staff report on this item?
Part of this is part of our reconstruction of roads and storm drain and water and sewer lines throughout the city. Currently, we have the company here, so this will be task order number 4 that goes with a half cent. And, as you can see, the bill, we're not getting charged mobilization and some more soft costs. It'd be my recommendation that we approve it.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission, from the board?
Mayor, I've got a question.
Go ahead.
How much is this task order going to cost us
It's
additionally?
$138,495 total, and it's listed by linear feet, and it looks somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 linear feet, just looking at it.
Is this the first task order that's been,
This is task order number 4.
oh, it's number 4, so we've already done 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, please.
Go ahead.
I'd like to move that we approve task order number 4 from Phoenix Construction in the amount of $138,495.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions from the board?
Yes, Mayor, if you
Go
may.
ahead.
What percentage of pipelines do we have left? Do we have any idea how many more we have to do after this work order?
No, sir, there's really not a way of knowing till, as, part of this lining is they go through and clean the pipes. If it be stormwater, if it be water or wastewater, they clean them, then we got them video cameraed, and then they do the slip lining. A lot of places may be so bad we have to take up a section and put it back in. So there's really not a way of knowing. What this does is it's increased the life of that line, keep us from having to dig the whole line up, put a new line in. So there is a lot of cost savings by doing the slip lining.
Oh, yeah, I understand the process, and anybody that doesn't know it, a real quick YouTube video, I mean, it's a really neat process how they do this. And you ought to look at it just so you'll understand it. My concern is always, you know, if we don't know the big picture, we don't know how much we're going to be spending for the whole thing. That's the only thing that concerns me.
Yeah, it continues to go with each road as we fix each road. We know what the C and D roads are. So as we continue with this half-cent money, we'll continue fixing all these.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission or comments? I'm sorry. Are there questions or comments from the public about this task order or the process? Hey, Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. So the task order number 4 is approved. Item number 12 is approval for Resolution 2018-05-711 to amend the Rails to Trails grant deadline to June 2019 instead of June 2018. Do we have that resolution that we need to read? I think we do.
I think there is a resolution. It's just, we just need to give them some extra time.
Okay, well, it was approval of Resolution 711, so are we okay to not read the resolution since we know what it says? Excuse me, I was just asking your advice.
We do? 'Cause I didn't see it.
Should be right at the,
Bear with me 1 second.
okay, yeah,
Bear with me 1 second.
that's okay. The resolution is to amend the Rails to Trails grant deadline. My understanding is that our engineering firm, Panhandle Engineering, please correct me, Mr. Forehand, if I'm not right, that you all have completed the engineering 100%, and that FDOT is saying that they're going to need several more months to review that. So it's not us that are causing the delay, but it's FDOT, which makes me very unhappy. But if you'll bear with us, we just want to make sure that we're legally doing what we need to do here by reading the resolution publicly. Would anyone have, and I'll ask the city attorney, would anyone have a problem with our going forward and approving this by motion? And then if we need to amend at the next meeting by rereading or doing something different, that we could do that. Is anybody objecting to that so we can move forward?
I don't object to it, and I just want to make sure that the audience understands too. Basically, what you said is all we're voting on, the fact that everything is done, the engineering plans have been sent off, and instead of approving it, FDOT has to...
We're giving them an extension deadline.
Of a year.
Of a year, 12 months.
And Rails to Trails can't start before, I mean, that puts the whole project a year behind. But what can we do? We really have no...
We're at their mercy.
Right, there's nothing we can do.
And they paid for this grant to do all the work, so they want to make sure the design's there. And we can't table this.
Mayor,
Okay, I would prefer just to go ahead and approve the resolution rather than table it, and then if there's any issue with it later, that we could go back and amend our decision. Is that okay with everyone?
Mayor, just for you, just so you'll know, the amendment is in our packet.
Okay, and yes, and he's got it online, so we're going to read it with the beauty of technology. Thank you, Mr. White.
Resolution number 2018-05-712, a resolution approving the joint participation agreement between the State of Florida Department of Transportation and the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, project number 443312-1-54-01, relating to 17th. Wrong
It's the
one.
wrong one.
Mayor, if you may, I will propose a written resolution and read it, and for the commission's consideration, and then we can submit that to DOT. Typically, DOT has these on forms that they provide, and we'll plug in the form. And if they're not going to be happy with that as far as accepting it, then we'll bring it back to the commission. And so
Well, if you're going to draft a resolution, because I was just under the impression that we had one and it wasn't in the packet. So if we're going to draft one, why don't we go ahead and I'd like to ask for a motion to table this till the next.
Well, I was going to draft it right now in my head and just read it to you all, but whatever you prefer to do.
I think I'd prefer to have it in writing, do it that way. Pardon me? Okay.
Just didn't make it into the packet.
Resolution number 2018-05-711, a resolution approving the First Amendment to Florida Shared Use Non-Motorized Trail Network Agreement, extending the term until June the 1st, 2019.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, is there a motion to accept, for approval?
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
There's been a motion and a second for the approval of Resolution 2018-05711 to amend the Rails to Trails grant deadline to June 2019 instead of June 2018. Any further discussion from the board? Any from the public? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, thank you. Item number 13 is approval to appoint Pat Perno to the City of Lynn Haven's Beautification Board. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? I would like to thank her very much him, I don't know why I said her, him, usually Beautification Board, but we're glad to have Mr. Pat Perno to the City of Lynn Haven's Beautification Board. Thank you for offering to give your time to help us out. Is there any discussion from the public? Mr. White, please call the roll.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. Do we have ordinance number 1055 ready? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Item number 14, the first reading of ordinance number 1055, adopting an administrative procedure for handling Whistleblower Act complaints.
Ordinance number 1055, an ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, adopting an administrative procedure for handling Whistleblowers Act complaints under Section 112.31878B Florida statutes, authorizing the city to contract with the Division of Administrative Hearings to make findings of fact and conclusions of law for a final decision by the Lynn Haven City Commission, repealing all ordinances in conflict and providing for immediately effective date.
Thank you so much. This is a first reading, so no action is required this evening. Item number 15, approval of the Traffic Safety Committee's 3 recommendations to place a 3-way stop on Floyd Drive, to place additional patrol on 16th Street and Massachusetts and 19th and Missouri. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion of these Traffic Safety Committee recommendations?
Mayor?
Yes.
I just have to say, I'm exceptionally happy with the city that this is working. You know, that we're listening to the citizens and things are getting accomplished. And I applaud the commission for getting this system set up.
I applaud the commission as well, I applaud the city staff as well and the commission for putting it in place. Any other discussion from the board? Any discussion from the public? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, and so those will be implemented. Item number 16 is the approval to establish a name for the roadway from Highway 77 into Pinnacle Apartments, Hammock Square Drive. Mr. City Manager, any comments on this?
That area does not have an address, and we've had some issues with the fire department, and that was one of the safety issues that come up in our traffic safety, so we decided that we need to bring it to your attention.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion from the commission? Any from the public? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes. Aye. Mayor Anderson.
Yes. So it stands approved. Item number 16, item number 17, approval to name the alleyway from 26th Street into Hammock Square Drive, Malden Way, and to establish a speed limit of 15 miles per hour in the alleyway of the stated name. Mr. White, would you like to comment on this?
That particular road, there is a perpetual easement on that road that goes back to the original owner. Should the businesses on that road, Starbucks and those others along there, if they decide not to take care of it, as you know, a lot of people travel it. There's a lot of speeding on that road. We do not have any way of enforcing. The city does have a drainage ditch along that alleyway, and we have to keep it clear. We just repaved that section of road, which has increased the speed on it. So needing a name, the landowner that developed that area is Jimmy Malden. So we spoke with 911 and actually spoke with Mr. Malden to see if he had any heartache of naming it. And so we came up with Malden Way. And being an alleyway, we thought 15 miles an hour is fast enough.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board?
Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
As I said in my opening comments, this is the road that one of the property owners was complaining about speeding. So the juxt of everything, this is how we're going to try to take care of this. And I appreciate that, City Manager, that you worked this out, that we're going to get a speed limit sign on there, and maybe we can slow the traffic down. The only other thing I would love to see is if there's any way we can make them move that garbage can off the road a little bit, that'd be great. That's all I got, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from the public on this item? Okay, Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. It stands approved. Item number 18, this will be regarding Resolution 2018-05712 through a joint participation agreement between the State of Florida Department of Transportation and the city to complete work along 17th Street from east of Alabama Avenue to west of State Road 77 in Lynn Haven, Florida. Could you please read that resolution for us?
Resolution number 2018-05-712, a resolution approving the joint participation agreement between the State of Florida Department of Transportation and the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, project number 443312-1-54-01, relating to the 17th Street ditch improvements and funding.
Thank you. And if you recall, board members, this was back when we were looking at filling and piping and covering the 17th Street ditch on the east side of 77, and then an agreement was reached between FDOT and the city for the west side. So are there any comments or questions about item number 18? Any comments from the public? There appear to be none. Mr. White, would you please call the roll for approval?
No, we need
Pardon me?
a motion.
I had you read it. I didn't do a motion. Could I have a motion for approval? Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Okay, Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. Stands approved. I'd like to thank everyone for a wonderful, productive meeting, all of you for attending and showing your interest in the city. I'd like to wish all of the moms here a very happy Mother's Day this Sunday, especially my mom, who comes to every meeting. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. And at this time, item number 19 is to adjourn.